Having kids changed our lives in so many ways and for the better, but there have been a lot of financial changes to our lives since having kids. So today I thought that I'd just sit down and hang out and talk about the way that our financial plans have changed since becoming parents. If you're new here, hey, I'm Marissa. I'm a mom to two. I have a son, Peter, who's almost 3 years old, and I have another little boy named Jack, who is 8 months old. I'm also very passionate about budgeting and personal finance, and I talk all about family finance here on my channel, and we were very budget conscious before we had kids. Together, my husband and I worked on paying off over $87,000 of student loan debt. We saved an emergency fund, we've been investing, we bought a house, and we've done all of these things through using a budget. And we were so excited for the season of having kids, but we also knew that kids are expensive and there are some changes just overall to your financial life when you do have kids. Now, I will say that some of these things that we have experienced, we didn't anticipate until we actually became parents. So here are some of the ways that our financial plans have changed. First off, having an emergency fund. Now, like I said, we did have an emergency fund before having kids. I love the rule of thumb of like 3 to 6 months of necessary expenses saved for an emergency fund. And we did this. We had our like fully funded emergency fund, and then we had kids and we still had an emergency fund, but over time we kind of got a little more lax about it. We're like, we haven't ever had to touch our emergency fund, so like, you know, it's fine. Like, we can lower it a little bit to more of that like 3 to 4 month threshold rather than 6. And then in the fall of 2022, my husband was unfortunately part of one of those lovely mass layoffs in the tech industry. And at that point, we had a 4-month-old baby and a 2.5-year-old, and it was very sudden and we were very caught off guard, and it was really scary. It would have been scary and unfortunate if we didn't have kids, but having kids and knowing that we had, you know, 2 other people to provide for and feed and shelter and everything, it was really stressful. I am really grateful that he did receive unemployment. I also work here on YouTube, so I did have some income coming in, and my husband was thankfully able to find a job in less than a month and a half. So that season was very short, and we ended up not even having to touch our emergency fund, but that was a huge wake-up call for us, knowing that we wanted to have more of like 6 months saved in our emergency fund since we are a family of 4. The way you can figure out how much you want to keep in your emergency fund is take 1 month of necessary expenses and then multiply it by how many months you want to save in your emergency fund. Again, having kids may be on the higher end of that spectrum, just so that you have more of that security. And also that'll vary depending on the stability of your income, if you're a single income household or a dual income. But having an emergency fund is so important, and this last season that we experienced was definitely a wake-up call in that. And I am pleased to share that we are back to our 6-month emergency fund goal, which feels really good to have that money set aside in case we need it, and hopefully we won't. The second way our financial plans changed was with life insurance. When we found out that we were expecting a baby, one of the first things we actually did was look into life insurance. Knowing that we'd have a child to financially support and thinking about what would happen if we weren't here or if one of us wasn't here really put things into perspective. Pretty morbid, I know, but it's a huge thing to consider when you're bringing a baby into your family. And so at that time, we did end up signing up for a term life insurance policy for myself and my husband, Jacob. If someone else relies on your income, term life insurance is there to help support their needs. According to the 2022 Brookings study, it costs about $311,000 to raise a child, and that's not even considering the cost of college. If you own life insurance at the time you pass, it will help ensure that your children have the financial support to live the life that you want for them. And even if you're not earning a salary, you should still consider getting life insurance. Consider all of the value that you provide your family as a stay-at-home parent. More than half of all families using childcare spend over $10,000 a year. And if a stay-at-home parent made an annual salary, it would equate to about $178,000 a year, according to salary.com. So just because you may not be earning a salary, it doesn't mean that you're not providing sort of monetary value for your family. It often feels like life insurance has been confusing, expensive, and time-consuming. But Ethos focuses on creating a seamless customer experience with an entirely online application process. And I also want to thank Ethos for sponsoring today's video. With Ethos, there are no medical exams or blood tests, and Ethos is able to cover people in a matter of minutes rather than weeks. You just answer a few health questions online, and Ethos is so affordable. Spending just 10 minutes filling out an application could help protect your family for as little as $10 a month. According to Investopedia, idea, each year that you wait to purchase life insurance, your premiums could increase by 8 to 10%. So the sooner you buy life insurance, the more affordable it's likely to be. Term life insurance is great because it's so affordable and it helps those who rely on your income should something happen to you. So if you're interested in learning more about Ethos or you're interested in getting your free life insurance quote, I will have a link down below in the description box and you can check them out there. The next way our financial plans have kind of changed since having kids may sound a little backwards, but this is actually prioritizing our retirement over our kids' college. Before we had kids, I knew how valuable it would be to save for their college, and this was something that I wanted to do like as soon as they were born. And it is something that we do. We do contribute to each of the boys' 529 college savings plan, but I will say that we prioritize our retirement before contributing for their college. Saving for your kids' college is great, but not at the expense of your own retirement. I would absolutely hate to be a burden on my kids in the future during my retirement years because I didn't save for anything in retirement, but instead paid for their college. I like the analogy of when you're on an airplane and they say when the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself before helping someone else. I think the same is to be said about our finances. As much as we want to give our kids the world and set our kids up really well financially, it's much more important that you set yourself up first and then help out your kids along the way. I know that what we are contributing now to our kids' college isn't going to fully fund a four-year university experience for them. But the great thing is that they'll have something set aside that we're saving for them, and then they can have other options like attending community college, getting a scholarship, or picking a more affordable university. Whereas our retirement is coming and we want to make sure that that's funded so that, again, we won't be a burden on our kids in the future. Our next financial plan that has changed is in regard to creating a will or a trust. And this is something that I'll admit we still haven't done and we are planning to do this year. It's so important to have a plan for your children and your assets if something were to happen to you. Again, when you have children, you think about all of these things that sound a little morbid, but knowing that you have someone else to take care of financially, even when you're gone, just weighs a little bit differently. I've known the importance of this for years, even before we had kids, but we've kind of put that off just because it can be an expensive thing to complete. But I have a couple tips of ways to save money on it that I recently learned about. The first being through your employer. Some employers may offer a legal benefit that you can enroll in during open enrollment, so definitely check this out during open enrollment time. We actually did this through my husband's employer this last year, and for $20 a month, we're getting legal services for the whole year. And part of that, we read up on to see what was included. Part of that was included with will and trust services. So we will be able to get our trust done this year for free just because we are paying for this legal service each month at $20 a month. Whereas the typical trust can cost over $2,000 usually to complete. And another awesome way that you could save on this service is actually with Ethos. Ethos also offers free will and trust planning tools to new policyholders who activate. For non-Ethos policyholders or those who don't qualify, you can purchase a will for $149 or full estate planning services for $449, which is still an awesome deal. Another change to our financial plans since having kids is in regard to our house. We bought our house in September 2019, and we actually closed on this house the week that I found out I was pregnant with our first baby. We bought this house knowing that we wanted to have a family, and I feel silly even saying this because we have a 4-bedroom house. We have lots of space here, and I'm grateful for that. Our boys each have, their own room. But with now work from home and being home with the kids all the time, our house feels a little cramped, as well as our living room is a little bit smaller. And if you have kids, maybe you can resonate with this, but I did not realize how much I would dream of having a playroom eventually. And so I would love to have a house someday with a playroom, with more space for the kids to have that, and more space in our living room. Now that we are like a growing family, it definitely feels a little bit cramped. And I feel silly saying that just because we do have a 4-bedroom house. But we bought this house knowing that we could be here for 7 or more years, and we definitely could. We can definitely make it work. But I think just a dream that we have would be to eventually have a larger house with a playroom and more space for the kids. This obviously comes at the expense of moving and purchasing a new home and everything that entails, but it is something that we do dream of, and hopefully in the nearish future, we can make that dream more of a reality. And the last change to our financial plans actually has nothing to do with finances, but the value of time. Becoming a parent has just made us realize how valuable time is. Time with our kids, time with our family, and we've made some more sacrifices in our finances to be able to allow us to have more time. I remember when we were just newlyweds or, married for how many years before we had kids, we'd go to work, we'd come home, we'd watch Netflix, we'd hang out, that just is what it is. But when we had kids, that mindset totally shifted, and we like to be able to spend as much time possible with them. So before our son Peter was born, I worked full-time in accounting. When he was born, which was May 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, everyone was, working from home. I was as well at that point when the pandemic hit. And then once I had him, I decided to go back to work part-time, still working from home. And then eventually I decided to quit my job and pursue everything here on YouTube, which has allowed me more time and flexibility to be home with my kids. Along the same lines, my husband was working full-time at an office, but then became working from home very quickly during that time. But when his employer was getting ready to go back into the office, he decided that he wanted to be home, working from home permanently because of the value that we saw for our family. So he did change jobs at that point and in a sense pursued jobs that have a full work from home expectation. And that is so valuable for us so that he doesn't have to spend time in a commute and just logs off from work and comes downstairs to hang out with the family. They say time is money, and having that value of time with your family may come at a financial cost, but that's worth it to us. Our lives have definitely changed since having kids, and our finances have been a huge part of that, but all for the better, and we're just so grateful for those sweet little boys that we got to bring into our family. So as a reminder, don't forget to check out Ethos and get your free insurance quote with the link down in the description box below. Let me know how your finances have changed since having kids, or if you're expecting kids, how do you expect your finances to change? And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.